In this video, I'm going to clean install Windows 11 on a Dell XPS 13-9305 equipped with an 11th generation Intel processor. Recall that the minimum system requirements Microsoft recommend for Windows 11 are an 8th generation Intel processor and later. So if I power up the Dell and press F2 to enter the Dell UEFI BIOS Setup, I see the modern Dell UEFI BIOS Setup, and this looks quite different from older systems. So I'm going to go to storage and have a look at SATA operation, and by default I see that RAID is on, and this device is equipped with an Intel volume management device controller. And what this means is with the RAID SATA operation, some of the processor technologies will be used with the NVMe solid state drive to substantially increase the system performance. Now, unfortunately, Microsoft haven't included the SATA drivers for this SATA operation in the Windows 11 installation media, so we're going to need to load them during the Windows setup. If, on the other hand, we change the SATA operation to AHCI, we're going to get less performance, but the Windows 11 installation media will be able to see the drives because it has a storage controller that can recognize this legacy drive configuration. So let's have a look at integrated devices. Now I'm using a Dell WD19 Thunderbolt dock and basically attaching the HDMI to a USB capture device so I can make the screen recording. Next, if we go to security, we'll need some of the security technologies enabled for Windows 11, specifically the TPM 2.0 security. However, I'm going to basically leave all the other security settings on, which are enabled by default. So the processor also has virtualization technologies which should be enabled by default and are especially important if you're creating a virtual machine later on after you've installed Windows. There's also the performance settings which should be enabled by default. And we've got the boot sequence. So you'll see that the boot sequence is UEFI only and secure boot is on, and it's on in deployed mode. So let me just exit the UEFI BIOS setup and go into Windows. And what I'm going to do is insert a USB flash drive. And now I'm going to create installation media. So I'm going to search for download Windows 11. And I'm going to select the second option to use the Windows 11 Media Creation tool to create a Windows 11 UEFI Bootable USB. So the only option that we can essentially change is the language. So uncheck Use Recommended Settings and select the desired language from the drop-down menu. Now I'm going to use the Windows 11 Media Creation tool to directly create the Windows 11 UEFI Bootable USB. You could use it to download the ISO and then create a bootable USB from Rufus. However, this seems to now work correctly, unlike earlier versions of the Windows 10 and 8.1 media creation tools. Okay, so the Windows 11 media creation tool has a boot.wim and an install.esd, and both of these are less than 4.0 gigabytes, and it's created a bootable USB with a single FAT32 partition. Next, I'm going to go to Dell drivers and downloads because I'm going to need the SATA drivers. So let me just go to support home and browse all products and select laptops, XPS, and then XPS 13 and XPS 13-9305. So I'm going to go to drivers and downloads, find drivers, select Windows 11, and I'm going to select Serial ATA. And I want to download the Intel Rapid Storage Technology driver and application. So once I've downloaded this, I'm going to launch the exe and I'm going to extract it. So let me just extract it to downloads, and I'm going to create a folder called SATA. So now that it's extracted, let's explore its contents. So we've got this F6 folder, and it's called F6 because in Windows XP you needed to press F6 to load SATA drivers during the Windows XP setup. So it's a legacy name, and we've got the F6 SATA drivers now, and I'm also going to download Dell Update. So this is under application, and we'll use Dell Update to install all the system drivers once Windows 11 has been installed. So let me also copy the Intel Rapid Storage Technology application and Dell Update to my Windows 11 Bootable USB, and I'm also going to download the BIOS update. So you should be able to get your model specific SATA drivers from Dell Drivers and Downloads. If not, you can also get them from Intel. So these are split into two sections, 10th and 11th generation drivers, and also 8th and 9th generation Intel drivers. Any other generation isn't officially supported with Windows 11 and may not perform too well. Okay, so I have everything I need to install Windows 11. So I'm going to power down the PC, and I'm going to power it up and press F12 to get to the boot menu. And the first thing I'm going to do is select BIOS update, and then I'm going to load the BIOS update from the USB flash drive, and then select update BIOS and then confirm the BIOS update. So this will give me the latest BIOS update on my system before I go ahead and install Windows 11. So there may be some fixes in the BIOS update for Windows 11 installation. So now I'm going to power up the Dell and press F2 to get to the Dell UEFI BIOS Setup, and I'm going to delete all old boot entries. Then I'm going to go to security, and I'm going to start the Dell data wipe. So I'm going to select OK and then no at the negatively phrased question, and apply the changes and exit. So we'll get a prompt informing us that we're about to erase all the data on the internal drives. So select continue and then select erase in order to proceed. And as this is a system with only a NVMe solid state drive, the data wipe is very fast, taking 10-20 seconds. Now that I've performed the data wipe, I'm going to power up the system and press F12 to get to the Dell UEFI BIOS boot menu again and select my Windows 11 bootable USB. So in the next screen we're going to get language options, and the defaults are correct for me. And then we're going to select install now. And when we select install now, it's going to search the device for an OEM embedded product key. And as it finds it on my device, I'm taken straight to the license agreement screen. So if I accept the license agreement and then select custom, notice that I don't see my NVMe solid state drive. And this is because I don't have the SATA drivers. So if I just select load drivers and then select this F6 folder, I'm actually not going to find the driver. So I actually need to browse down to the subfolder. So if I select F6 and then VMD and then this F6 floppy driver x64, and then in my case there's two drivers that are compatible with this hardware, so I'm just going to select them both and then select next. So now my NVMe solid state drive displays, and I can select it and then select next. And because I already performed the Dell data wipe, there's no partitions on the drive. If you had an old Windows installation, you would essentially need to delete all the partitions, including the recovery partition, and you would get drive 0 unallocated space. Select that and then proceed with the install. So it'll copy the Windows installation files and take you to the Windows 11 out of the box setup. So you'll be prompted for your keyboard layout, and then you'll be prompted to connect to the internet. Now in Windows 11, the local account is a pro-only feature. So if you connect to the internet on Windows 11 Home, you're not going to be able to sign in with a local account. If you don't connect to the internet, then you will be able to. So in the next screen, we'll be prompted to name our device. So this is your computer name. So I'm just going to use the model XPS 9305 as the computer name. And then I'm going to set up an account for personal use. So for some reason, it seems to think I'm offline. So it's taking me to a local account creation. So let me go back and select setup for personal use, and now it's prompting me for a Microsoft account, and I can select offline account and then skip for now to get to the offline account. So I'm going to sign in with a Microsoft account, and I'm going to use most of the default features, including OneDrive integration. So this is only recommended if you've got an Office 365 subscription, which gives you 1 terabyte OneDrive storage. Otherwise, the integration isn't very useful for you. So I'll set it up as a new device. I'll allow use of my location for weather and maps. I'll include optional diagnostic data, but I won't improve typing. I'll receive tailored diagnostic information, and I won't share the advertising ID. So next is an optional setting to inform Microsoft what you're going to use your PC for. So in my case, I'm just going to select business and then select accept. In the next screen, you'll be asked whether you want OneDrive integration, and graphics driver is just being updated, so my screen is flashing. So select only save files to this PC if you're not going to use OneDrive, otherwise select next. So the Windows out of the box setup will check for updates and then display the final setup screens before you get to the Windows 11 desktop. So if I open up File Explorer, you'll see there's a cloud beside desktop, documents and pictures, and this means these folders have OneDrive integration. And there's no OneDrive integration with downloads, music and videos, because these folders usually contain large files that you don't want to store on OneDrive, eating up your limited OneDrive storage. So if I right click the start button to get to the power users menu and select settings, notice that the settings has finally been updated to incorporate all the options within the control panel. So this is something that basically it took all the builds of Windows 10 to do, and now settings looks quite consistent. So I'm going to go to Windows Update, and I'm also going to open up the device manager from the power users menu and just see if any of my system devices require a driver. So most of the system devices have had a driver automatically installed from Windows Update. So it's going ahead, downloading updates and installing them, and some of the updates penned a restart, so let me just restart my computer. Okay, so as I log in, I notice that I've got 2 Edge shortcuts on the desktop. So one of them is from this current Windows 11 installation, and another one is for the legacy Edge in an old Windows 10 installation. So I'm going to delete both of these shortcuts, and notice that I'm informed that these files are on OneDrive, and that deleting them here will delete them everywhere. and that I've got up to 30 days to restore the file if I want to. So I'm going to search for updates again, and once again I'll be prompted to restart. So I'll go back in and search for updates once again. And I get a note that it's failed to install updates, so let me just select retry. And some of the updates have downloaded and have installed. So if I just select retry again, I should get the final update. So Windows Update has done a pretty good job finding drivers from Microsoft servers for all my system devices. What I'm going to do now is install Dell Update, which is instead going to search Dell servers for updated drivers. So let's go ahead and install Dell Update. And after I install it, I'll be prompted to restart the computer. So I'll go ahead and restart the computer. And then once I log back in, I'm going to launch Dell Update and search for updated Dell drivers from the Dell servers. So if I select the Start button, I get the new Windows 11 Start menu, and then if I select All Apps, I can get Dell Update. So it'll take a moment to launch for the first time, and then I can select Check. And then it's found 8 drivers for my system. So I'm going to select Automatically Restart System when required, and then select Install. So it'll go through and download all the updates. And then once it's downloaded everything it needs, it'll go ahead and install them. So in my case, it's managed to install 7 out of the 8 drivers. I think the driver that failed was the removal driver. So this is to remove old versions of Dell Update and other Dell utilities which had a security exploit. And because I've never installed these on this system, because it's a clean installation, it's not managed to install this properly. Okay, so once the computer's restarted, I can check for updates again, and it should tell me that my system is now up to date. Okay, so I'm going to install the Intel Rapid Storage Technology driver and application now. So the driver's already installed, because we loaded it during the Windows setup. However, the application hasn't been installed, so let's go ahead and install this and then launch the application. So on my system there's nothing to do because I've just got a single NVMe solid state drive, so it's already optimized. On other systems you may be able to create a RAID volume or set up Intel Optane memory. So if I go to settings, I can turn on the paste clipboard. And what this does is it allows us to copy and paste multiple times. So we've got the normal shortcut key for copy, Control and C. And we've got the shortcut key Control and V to paste. And Windows and V to use the paste clipboard. So let me just change Edge's settings to use a different search engine. So if I go to Privacy, Search and Services, select Address Bar and Search, I can change this to DuckDuckGo or Google. And I'm also going to want to make the same changes to the address bar. So if I open up a new tab, I'm going to change the setting to focused. And let me just search for A. and I can highlight some text and copy it. So if I press Windows and V, I get the paste clipboard. So I can also copy an image. So this is an animated GIF, it's not quite what I wanted. Let's copy this. I think this is a PNG, so it's also not the best, as a transparent background looks black. So the paste clipboard is integrated into the emoji panel, which can be accessed by pressing Windows and full stop. And I tend to use the emoji panel more for the symbol access. And this could do with a bit more improvement because it's quite hard to search for a symbol. So if I open up the Office app, for some reason it comes up with an error, so I'll close it down and open it again, and I can select Install Office. So this is going to log me into my Microsoft account, and then I can select Install Office. So I'll need to launch the Office setup, accept the user account control prompt, and then in the background it's going to download Microsoft Office and install it. So now that Office is installed, I can close this and I can launch Word, Excel and PowerPoint, which are automatically added to the start menu. So I can select Get Started and then Open Office XML formats, and then I can just use Office as normal. So Windows 11 has a number of personalization options. So we can get these by opening up Settings and then Personalization. Now if I select Taskbar, I can change the location of the taskbar from the middle, which gives this kind of central dock style feeling to left, which is more familiar for a traditional Windows user. Unfortunately, at present, I can't change the start menu size, so I can't get a full start screen like I can in Windows 8.1 or Windows 10. Okay, so let me just finish up by going to the Dell drivers and download page, and once again I'm going to select my model, which is a laptop XPS, XPS 13 and then a XPS 13-9305. Now I'm going to have a look at Windows 11 and see if there's any optional applications that I haven't installed. So there's the Intel Thunderbolt controller application, and let's go ahead and install this. So I can launch this to control some settings on the Thunderbolt. So it's under Thunderbolt and not under Intel. So it doesn't actually seem to mention the WD19TB attached to the Thunderbolt port on my system, so the application doesn't seem to be that useful. Next, let's just go through the other categories. So if I go to Network and if I right click the Start button and select Device Manager, I can see what devices I have installed under Network Adapters. So I should have this Killer Control Center, and it's actually been automatically installed, so I don't need to go ahead and install it. Okay, so let's now just have a look through the other categories. So if I go to Systems Management, I've got this Intel Processor utility, so I'll go ahead and install this. So once I've installed this, it doesn't actually seem to be an application, so I don't see anything in the start menu to launch. Okay, so if I go back, I see I've got this Dell Power Manager. So let's go ahead and install this. And go ahead and launch it. So this will give us some options for how we want to run the system. So we can run it optimized, cool, quiet, or ultra performance. So I'm going to run mine quiet. Okay, so that's me finished installing Windows 11 and all the Dell system drivers on my XPS 139305. So as we see, Windows 11 has this new updated start menu. The power users menu is more or less the same. Task Manager has been updated in recent Windows 10 builds, but it's again incorporated into the Windows 11 style, and we see that my system is running pretty well. The Windows PowerShell has been replaced by the Windows Terminal. And as I mentioned, settings has been updated, so it's not got that schizophrenic feeling where you're basically between a setting and the control panel like you were in Windows 10. So from a user's point of view, the biggest change that's useful is the snap layouts. So if we highlight the maximize button, we can see we get an option to how we want to snap our windows. So this is a really useful feature that should have probably been implemented years ago. We can also change to the dark themes if we want. I don't particularly like the dark themes, so I'll go back to the light, and you can change the accent colors. So other than that, it feels very familiar for a Windows 10 user. So it feels like another Windows 10 build, but it runs really smoothly on this XPS 139305 equipped with a Intel 11th generation processor.